Across the endless wasteland, where dust swallows the bones of golden empires, the only prayer heard is the one in the echo of a bullet being fired. Hello everybody! We return to Terra in the Age of Strife, where today we take a look and explore Merica. From the barren and irradiated heartlands, the creeping mutated bayous, and the scattered colonies being kept together by warlords and wasteland legends. Let's come along and deep dive into Merica. Merica endures as a vast fractured remnant sprawled across the irradiated heartlands and shattered coast of what was once, in our world, North America. Its territories encompasses the poisoned Great Plains where fallout had soaked deep into the soil, and the crumbling spires of ancient hive ruins are seen dotting the eastern seaboard. Here, tectonic upheaval is a constant, alongside the toxic storms of the Badlands of the former Midwest, alongside with mutated wilds of the Western Mountain Chain. All of this comes together to create a landscape where every man, woman and child must be ready to fight for their survival if they wish to see the light of another day, or in the very few and rare cases even prosper. This land is a monument to hubris, as traveling here will have you come across endless ass waste where the corpses of megacity dwarfs you in scale. Fractured omega highways are partially buried under centuries of dust and grit, and glowing craters from atomic exchange still burns with unnatural light when the night falls. Here, in this once great country, what remains of what you could barely call nature has also changed. In the areas not defined by grinding deserts, you find polluted rivers that carry within them not only predators in the form of ancient still-living reptilians, but a much smaller and more insidious killer known as the sludge. In most of these rivers, this substance runs and proliferates, giving off a byproduct that is akin to black oil. This substance spreads like a mycelium network, and the tribes that dare to call the mutated bayous their home know very well to stay clear of any contact with the stuff. Where this terrible run of pools, a twisted semi-flora and fauna starts to grow, creating pockets of swamp-like marshland and bayous that at the surface appear harmless, but is as dangerous and toxic like anything else found within this country, and only the hardest of tribe call these red bayous for home. Merica is not a unified empire, but a sprawling loose confederation of warlord enclaves, nomadic hordes and a few fortified city-state that is barely clinging to the viable scraps of the continent that can still sustain life. These habitable zones are limited and is mostly found around what are sprawling bunker complexes, where ancient and somewhat functional life support systems bleed their innards out into the ground, creating a landmass that is watered more by blood than the toxic rain. Brutal raiding forces fight for scrap, territory and the land that still sustains life, often leading to terrible skirmishes where savages get to deep dive into human nature when it's fueled by desperation and the need for survival. Some of these groups are nomadic techno-hordes, roaming the plains on jury-rigged vehicles. Others are entrenched in vast hive cities and underground bunkers with coughing air scrubbers. Here, those that live attempt to restart old hydroponic farms that were meant to sustain those who originally built these places. This is a land of desperate expansion and bitter defense, where control of a single water purifier can spark generations of warfare or effectively crown you king. Yet Merica, despite the odds, lays claim to an inherent pride that rallies and muster any techno-barbarian into vast armies when outside forces threaten to lay claim to their land. When outsiders strike, there are only a few routes that can be taken thanks to the terrible geography of the land itself, and when they manage to cross the terrible rat storms and mutated hills, they can strike at some truly valuable nodes of interests. One of these is the Black Reservoir. This area is the size of lesser Age of Strife countries, and it is full of rusting pump jacks and dried riverbeds where the earth can be ravaged and made to bleed thick, sluggish promethium sludge. Even deeper within are an ancient family calling themselves the Roughneck clan that clings to a special form of neutrality. Seeking not to control the Black Reservoir, but seeing themselves as a part of it, they possess the knowledge to refine this black substance into usable promethium. They do so for any who offer up resources, or in some cases those with enough firepower to insist on their services. Yet in these cases, the fierce Merican pride shines through, as such forces quickly discover that their vehicles are coughing black smoke and is destroyed from within only a few miles out, right as other forces from the surrounding area descends upon them. Almost any tribe of techno-barbarian in Merica have at some point had to deal with the Roughneck clans, as this country is truly vast and mostly filled with long stretches of hostile terrain, making the need for fuel essential to anyone. When open to trade, this clan will ignite all manner of awful materials in ancient industrial forges, creating pillars of black smoke that signals to everyone for miles that fuel is available for anyone capable of reaching it and trading for it. This quite often creates intense scenes of terrible death races and armored combat as factions attempt to outcompete each other for this resource. Darakan Valma is the undisputed leader of the Roughneck clan and is a giant of a man, cybernetically enhanced with scavenged servo arms and piston-driven legs. His voice is a guttural roar amplified by vox horns torn from ancient machinery, and while an imposing figure, he is at his heart a merchant lord. However, he's the kind of merchant lord who would gladly have you pay for fuel and then rob you afterwards if he is able to. Another valuable and often contested area is the Ever Meers. This is a sprawling fetid nightmare of mutated mangroves, swamps, sinkholes and radioactive water crawling with terrible mycelic life known, as I mentioned before, as the sludge. Here, there are areas so overgrown that the sun barely reaches the ground and where the uninitiated die in droves due to the ignorance that just because death is not wearing the mask of dryness and thirst, it will still take your life here. Absolutely massive reptilian mutant horrors glide through the darkness and muck, destroying entire caravans of travelers, vehicles included. However, the list of horrors does not stop at reptiles, because the insects here are vampiric and the flora feast on anything not shielded from toxic material, and that which the sludge touches are further mutated and amalgamated into truly unique horrors that, to outsiders, border on the supernatural. This place is in a near constant skirmish, as locals and outsiders spill each other's bloods for hardy mutated foodstuffs, and the few functional refineries here can turn the polluted rivers into something that resembles drinking water. Incredibly ruthless and deadly families and clans call this place home, and their fierce American pride does not take kindly to strangers of any kind. They have carved out a living here amongst this deadly place, fighting terrible sludge-touched mutants, gargantuan beasts, and any outsiders with grand ideas of becoming warlords or other slaver kings. No techno-barbarian, be it local or outsider, have ever been able to fully control this area, and this is actually the way that families like it, meaning that having the people of this area pulled in a unified direction takes somebody with incredible skill in negotiation and intimidation. At the other end of the country lies the Silicon Sepulchre. This towering megastructure lays half buried beneath layers of irradiated glass, sand, grit, and dirt. The upper level seems to scrape the heavens, and the outer frame of the structure almost seems melted, as if great heat were about to turn to slag. This area around the sepulchre reaches temperature that is so hostile to human life that only those with special knowledge of underground routes can travel it during the daytime. At nighttime, it is said that this area is much more dangerous, because when the sun is down, this place is haunted by terrible machines that animate in the presence of movement. In a frenzy, they will scuttle towards anything that had disturbed them, rendering them limp for limp only to go back into their dormancy. Yet, even with these dangers, this place has become one of the few civilized hubs of Merica, as the Silicon Sepulchre is a source of ancient technology and spare parts, creating a kind of a feeling of a techno gold rush town. Within this broken megastructure lie shattered data halls of the Golden Age, machine-ridden corridors ripe for scavenging, server tombs ready for plundering, and some even say real STC technology, as legends speak that this place was where the men of the ancient age would travel into the stars. When not chased by data geist or encountering reactivated horrors from the dark age of technology, these tech prospectors spill each other's blood for the treasure that they wrest from the corpse of this place, making a name for themselves if they manage to leave the shadows and coldness of the corridors back into the blistering sunlight. A singular family has been sitting at the top of this node of civilization here, and the leader of this family is Syphil Glass. She has, through cunning, resource management, and enough backstabbing, clawed her way to power in this place. She is a haunting figure whose lower body has been replaced by a hovering platform of anti-grav plating or spider-like limbs. Her skin is covered in shifting holographic tattoos pulled from images of corrupted data streams. Here she trades the findings of the techno prospectors for more conventional resources that they need, and she is constantly fighting a war against black markets sprouting up around her, as she does everything she can to control everything here, like a true spider. There is a certain idea within Merica that while they will kill, betray, and compete intensely with each other, should an outside source prove a true danger to a territory, they will unite to fight them off in something known as a confederation. This confederation unites and rallies their resources, manpower, and firepower underneath a symbol that is almost invested with an ideological holy power known as the Broken Eagle. This stylized raptor has one wing shattered and is often rendered in rusted iron and salvaged gold leaf. On a battle standard, it is painted in blood, and on large motor vehicles, this icon is welded directly onto the side or front. The Broken Eagle is a twisted yet defiant symbol, calling its people to remember past glories and embrace the absolute refusal to die no matter what comes. Each of the factions within this configuration add their own embellishments to this Broken Eagle: chains for slaver kings, glowing rune lines for techno-philosophers, and skulls for motor warriors ready to fight back anyone who would try to take their land. Counting and trying to get any sort of idea of what sources such a confederacy would have would be incredibly hard, as the tribes would appear, get conquered and absorbed, only to fracture again on a near constant basis. However, several tribes have started to referring to themselves as families, claiming ancestry and memory of the dark age of technology. These families are the most entrenched in the civilized zones, and as such often negotiate and gathers everyone when a confederacy is needed. The first of these families is the feverant family. These are masters of mechanized warfare. The feverant bloodline claim to descend from lines of industry kings and manufacture barons. When a confederacy is called by this family, a true tide of jury-rigged priest-drive vehicle is assembled under the battle cry, "A machine for every warrior." The family present themselves in an almost cult of personality-like way amongst their followers, showing their glory with armored holders, crude battle tanks, and the ability to replenish these at a rate unlike anyone in the wasteland. They are incredibly expansionist, and most of the nomadic warlike techno-barbarians has some sort of tie, debt, or loyalty to the feverant family. During a confederation, members of this family will mount a legendary war wig filled to the brim with forgotten Dark Age of technology weaponry, defensive systems, and much more, and on a titanic battle standard, the Broken Eagle flies, reminding all of the glory of Merica. This family had very little in the way of rivals, yet one of these would be the House DuPont. Masters of forbidden chemistry and ancient industrial alchemy, House DuPont are the masters of creating volatile drugs, substitutes, corrosive weapons, and powerful combat drugs. Having spent ages proving themselves as the most ruthless and dominating source of medical and chemical goods, their bloodline lays claim to the owners of vast automated manufactorums. Despite them being crumbling and belching toxic smoke, they still operate well enough to pump out a relatively steady supply, cementing their power. A confederation led by the House DuPont are filled with warriors that become augmented with chembrick implants and armor treated with hardened resins and other chemicals that make them resistant to the toxic wasteland. They are feared for their willingness to unleash apocalyptic chemical barrages with their military forces, and quite often they fight their wars by introducing a scorched earth strategy, further poisoning the already terrible wasteland. They possess something quite remarkable, which is known as the Crucible. This is a mobile manufactorum that serves as the base of power from which they give out their gifts of the Crucible, creating enhanced and thoroughly dependent warriors that, thanks to them, can fight well and above what regular humanity is capable of. The feverant and House DuPont are at each other's throats constantly, and would have carved a winner from each other's corpse if not for the very last family capable of standing up to their influence, the Culticates. The Culticates are arrogant and charismatic. The family lays claim to an old ancestry of those who laid the bones of the old Omega highways and buried tram tracks. And while they can no longer use these monuments to hubris, they have turned their remaining resources towards something that the Age of Strife will never stop needing: ammo and ways to fire it. The Culticate dynasty is that of metallurgy and heavy industry, creating small arms, blades, and armors to such a relative standard that almost all forces within Merica would love to wield a Culticate weapon. While many techno-barbarians have their ways of producing such things, the Culticate did something unthinkable in this age. They decided to share. Now every man, woman, and child associate weaponry with their name, and as such they wield incredible social influence and material riches, as they sell those above average guns and weapons to anyone capable of buying them, even in small amounts. This means that a confederation called by this family will see every warrior armed well above what a regular wastelander can acquire on their own, and truly vast armies march on underneath their Broken Eagle with the promise that they will get to keep everything given to them once the threat has perished. These three families are without question the most powerful that remain within Merica, and as such they're in a constant dance of power through intimidation, persuasion, and small-scale warfare using third-party tribes. Yet, while clawing at each other's territories, they understand that they are American, and they will show their full fury against anyone threatening that. However, enough with the elite. Let's get back to the regular folk and the legends that rise from amongst them. Traveling this land cannot possibly be done alone, as while vast populations are clustered and fortified in a few of the somewhat habitable zones, there are so incredibly far between these areas that traveling on foot is to invite death. either by the terrible mutated deviant strains of humanity and beasts, such as the plain bold glowhounds and the many avian horrors that use the barren landscapes as a personal buffet. No. If the tribes and beasts do not get you, your death may even come by the dust storms carrying metal and glass shards at the speed that would flay anything living, or poison you with the still irradiated dust from the many craters of long-dead bombings. Even if you were ready and equipped for dealing with these dangers, you would still have to negotiate passage with some of Terra's most territorial nomadic tribes that might just decide to, instead of accepting a price for you to pass, they will decide to just take everything you have, including the remaining promethium in your tank. No, the safest way, if anything like that exists in this age, it is by buying safety from a small yet very famous band of techno-barbarians known as dust slingers. These are smaller yet incredibly well-equipped bands of hardened road warriors, famous for wearing long coats and chemically treated cloth masks to shield themselves from the worst of the toxic dust. They are often seen armed with deadly Dark Age of technology weaponry, using it with equal skill, and while proud and grouchy, they are known to be honorable enough to at least see you to your destination, or at least not eat your corpse if things get too dicey. These men and women have found themselves slowly becoming figures of legends, and campfire stories travel as much as they do as they venture forth into death zones with news, intel, trade goods, and much needed scavenged parts that surviving communities need to repair the ancient mechanisms that sustains them. This means that quite often a nomadic techno-barbarian tribe encountering strangers who have employed a posse of dust slingers, they are quite inclined to let them pass through their territory, both out of respect, familiarity, but also the understanding that a firefight between them is not a guaranteed win, even if the nomads have the numbers. The origins of Merica is that it coalesced in the aftermath of the cybernetic revolt and the emergence of slingers. It emerged as a series of surviving military commands, corporate enclaves, and refugee fleets. These initially banded together against the remnants of the shattered Men of Iron and monstrous slingers, forming early factions that barely has any trace remaining in the current age of strife. Early warlords, often ex-military governors or gene-enhanced CEOs, carved fiefdoms from the chaos, and the country formed and evolved through cycles of fragile alliances, shattered by betrayal and reforged in desperation. Technological hoarding became the path to dominance, and initially settled zones would collapse after a whole lot of problems came their way, be it that they reached their capacity for sustainability, mutant attacks, or other unforeseen problems, meaning that very soon new and less habitable regions would have to be resettled. Fragments of the Golden Age survived in corrupted data slates, server tombs, and oral chants passed among the campfires, while advanced tech like limited STC manufacturing and cybernetic augmentation persisted only in the hands of the elite. Merica has had, through most of the ages, had its knowledge distorted by superstition or just plain death of those who held it, meaning that in this country, a single functional data slate can elevate a warrior to a warlord. Laws, liberty, and justice are ideals that in some way almost seem engraved into the DNA of the people here, yet each territory seems to come with its completely own interpretation of what such things entail. Yet, they all agree that these things must be protected and elevated even in times of famine and turmoil. When the Emperor would march upon Merica, he encountered fierce initial resistance from the local techno-barbarians, as they saw just another warlord coming to take their lands and their homes from them. At first the Emperor was set upon breaking this people, seeing them as little more than the regular rabble of the wasteland, But when he saw how the tribes would unite to face against him, and when his psychic senses touched upon the pride and the dedication towards these old remnant ideals of the Golden Age, he understood that this was a people to be protected and who could become a force to reunite the world. A glorious scene was set as the emperor stood in the ruins of an ancient Oriel theatre with representatives of the Fortran, House DuPont and Coultercase, alongside any techno-barbarian that wanted a seat. Here, he told them about his dreams of a united humanity and his dreams of sailing the stars, and in this very building, the Broken Eagle merged with the Golden Raptor. Thank you so much for listening. Let me know if you like this and consider subscribing if you want to hear more. Funnily enough, I'm not done talking about Merica, because the next video might be where we take a little bit of a jump from the Aegis Drive and quickly into the modern 40k. But I will save that as a little bit of a surprise as we are about to look at New Austin. Anyways, have a great day and again consider subscribing. Bye bye.